Hello and welcome to the premiere episode of The Graham Taylor Show, where we talk with incredible people about what it takes to start, grow, and scale a successful company in today's competitive market. Today, I'm fortunate to have an amazing person on the call with me, Adi Suja, CEO and founder of Growth Club. I've had the pleasure of working with Adi over the last few years, and his dedication, hard work, passion, and depth of knowledge always inspire me. Grab a pen and paper because Adi always over delivers and shares insights he should definitely be charging big money for. Adi's at the forefront of LinkedIn marketing and runs the top LinkedIn marketing agency in the world. He helps his clients position themselves as industry influencers and consistently gets millions of views on their content. His system not only gets you in front of thousands of your ideal clients, Adi built it to deliver consistent, high-quality inbound leads by delivering massive value to your audience, building genuine relationships with them, and positioning you as a top-of-mind solution to their pressing problems. Adi loves experiments, and his relentless pursuit of experimentation is what keeps Growth Club at the cutting edge of LinkedIn marketing and helps him generate incredible results for his clients. Now, please, welcome one of the most amazing marketers I've had the pleasure to know, Adi Suja. Adi, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Graham.
Great, Adi. Now, you've had quite an amazing journey. Would you share your story with us and your journey and what made you start your own LinkedIn marketing agency?
All right, so I think it started out around like 3 or 4 years ago, and I had just quit my full-time job as a content marketer at a Canadian digital marketing consultancy called TechWise, and I was trying to build my own agency. So at the start, like I made the same mistake that most entrepreneurs who want to start their own agency or their own consulting practices do. I started out with generic LinkedIn, not exactly LinkedIn marketing services, but generic marketing services. So it was offering everything from blog content marketing to advertising to branding to even web design services. And eventually, I think at some point I realized that I sucked at sales. I had absolutely no idea how to generate leads. And I turned to LinkedIn to kind of solve that issue, that pain point for the company. So I came across this book called the BAMF Bibles, which was put together by a LinkedIn marketer called Josh Vector. And he was teaching people how you could, basically be really vulnerable on LinkedIn, like share your really vulnerable experiences, struggles, obstacles, failures, etc. in business publicly on LinkedIn and on how that could be used to relate with other business owners and thereby generate leads. Now, I trusted his approach, but I was pretty sure that it would take a long time. So what I did was I shared a bunch of my stories about a lot of vulnerable stuff, like including about my dad getting fired from his job. Like he used to be in the sales department of a firefighting equipment company in the Middle East, and he was fired from his job after like 30 years of work. And that was a very vulnerable experience that I had because I think it was around that point that I decided, okay, I'm never going to work for another company. I'm just going to start something on my own because I have more control of my career, right? So I shared such experiences openly on LinkedIn, and behold, it's just started working. We started generating a shit ton of leads on LinkedIn right from the first few months, and yeah, then it's history. We just pivoted completely to becoming a LinkedIn marketing agency.
Now, for our listeners there, how long did it take from when you started posting to when you actually started seeing some traction?
Okay, great question. So one thing I understood was it takes a lot of time to generate any kind of results from any social media platform or any marketing channel. But interestingly, what I did on LinkedIn was I created a free, you could say a free form where people could reach out to me and schedule a call with me. I dropped a link to it in my profile, in my LinkedIn profile, and I started publishing content. And I didn't pay attention to this form or any responses I was getting from that form for like a couple months. I think it was around after the first 3 months, I was just going through some files in my Google Drive, and I came across a Google sheet that was recording the responses from this form. And I had about 40 people that had reached out to me. All of them were 40, like about 40 leads that had reached out to me with an interest of working with me or getting on a call with me. So I think that was the pivotal moment, you could say, when I finally realized that LinkedIn was generating results for us.
Amazing.
So I think it was at that point that I finally understood that I had to spend a lot more time on LinkedIn than any other marketing channel. But
Mhm.
you could say, yeah, 4 months is the time that it took to eventually start generating leads, or at least start seeing the results in my case.
That's actually amazing because I mean it's not we're not talking about years, we're not talking about giant time investments. 4 months in the big scheme of things is actually a really short amount of time. So, will you share with us what's your marketing methodology? What are some of the best practices that get the best results?
Yeah, so a lot of our methods and strategies on LinkedIn is are very content heavy. So one of the things that I understood very early on is a specific aspect of the LinkedIn algorithm. So you may have seen this yourself because you've been in this game as well. So something that happens on LinkedIn is this: if you send somebody a message in their inbox, they tend to see more of your content and you tend to see more of their content. So this is actually a way to show targeted content that adds value, that's relevant content, and kind of generate leads and so on. But it's a way to show targeted content to people who fit the buyer persona, your buyer persona, right? So
Mm,
if we use Sales Navigator actively and filter down to people who fit your customer persona, and then reach out to them and start conversations with them and continue those conversations over the course of, say, 2 or 3 weeks with a lengthy follow-up sequence, and at the same time publish valuable content every day, then you're actively targeting these people who fit your target customer persona with the right type of content. This is a great way to start generating inbound leads. Now, these people who see your content obviously have to get familiar with you. They have to pass through what we call the know, like, and trust factor in content marketing to eventually reach out to you as an inbound lead. But
yes.
this aspect of the LinkedIn algorithm where they show the content of each of those content to people we are having a conversation with in the LinkedIn inbox, I think that is at the core of our methodology on LinkedIn because the right strategy on LinkedIn combines everything from targeting the right people, reaching out to them, starting conversations with them, to showing them the right content to attract them as inbound leads. And then eventually, the last stage of the funnel is having an optimized profile so that they can reach out to you, they can get a very good idea on who you are, what value you offer to your audience, and so on. And then eventually become hopefully a client.
That's extremely powerful because you're getting in front of them and you're consistently top of mind. That's really an amazing strategy for LinkedIn there. So, is there anything else there? Some specific details that you'd say are important to execute that?
Yes. Okay, so only 40% of LinkedIn's user base is active on the platform. So this is something that many marketers get wrong, especially when they get started with LinkedIn. So when I say only 40% of LinkedIn's user base is active on the platform, it means when you send them a message or you post a piece of content, they may not be seeing them, which means that's going to affect your campaign health. So you need to focus on people who've posted on LinkedIn, at least in the past month, once in the past month. Now, luckily, Sales Navigator offers a spotlight filter called posted on LinkedIn in the past 30 days. So that is one filter that we try to include in all our campaigns. All right. Now, that's one important thing. The other thing I can tell you about content is that many people focus on topics a lot more than they should. So they keep obsessing over what topics work and what topics don't work. The truth
Hmm.
is that you need to focus on formats a lot more. So what I mean by that is consider an industry or a niche like recruitment services. So if you're in an industry or a niche like that, you need to focus more on, say, like memes. Memes work beautifully in that industry. But at the same time, memes don't work in manufacturing as an industry because that content format won't be relatable to users in that industry. So you need to be focusing more on content formats, and I'm not just talking about say image posts or text posts or videos and so on. I'm talking about what kind of videos. So they can be interview snippets, or they can be Q&A videos where a user asks you a question and you respond and you answer that question, right? That works really well in the consulting space, for example. So think about specific content formats and keep testing them and eventually figure out what content formats are working really well for your particular target audience. All right, so those are two things. The third thing I can talk about, okay, maybe here's something that many people get wrong again. There are two types of industry filters on LinkedIn. So you have an industry filter that you add on your profile, and you have an industry filter that you add on your company page. Now, where most marketers get it wrong is in the lead search, they enter the industry filter, and what that does is it filters prospects based on the industry category that they've added on their profiles. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Most users don't update their LinkedIn profiles for the industries. And what this does is you get very irrelevant results if you're using the industry filter in the lead search in Sales Navigator, as opposed to the industry filter in account search in Sales Navigator. So the lesson here is always use industry filter in the account search, save it as a list in Sales Navigator, and then filter from that list in the lead search. So this is like very minute, like very trivial aspect of filtering on Sales Navigator, but
Yes.
It creates a huge impact as to how you're prospecting on LinkedIn, which impacts your entire LinkedIn strategy.
Interesting. Now, you mentioned something there about content formats, and a question that one of our viewers might have is, how do I pick the right content format for me? Is it just brute force testing, or is there some guidelines that you can go about to decide what content format might be a good fit for you?
Okay, it's important to start talking about like how most people approach LinkedIn content marketing, whether as opposed to like how it's supposed to be. So when most users start creating content on LinkedIn, they do it for promoting their business, obviously, or their personal one. But when they do it to start promoting their business, they first focus on the company page as opposed to the user profiles. So the important thing here is statistically only 0.9% of all leads generated on LinkedIn come from the company page. I'm talking about organic content, of course, but only 0.9% of all B2B leads generated on LinkedIn come from the company pages. Now that's not just the majority of the leads coming from user profiles. Almost all of the lead generation is happening on user profiles. The reason is simple. LinkedIn wants to promote relationships between people and get people to like engage with each other on their personal user profiles as opposed to company pages. And it's easy to verify this as well. You can take a quick look at your LinkedIn feed and just go through the first 20 or the first 500 posts. And I can guarantee that less than 1% of the posts on the feed will be from company pages. I mean, organic content from company pages, not ads. So
Amazing.
The first paradigm shift you need to have when you start with your content marketing strategy is focus on the user profile. All right. Now, when you start getting into the thought process of considering content formats and ideating content formats, think of this. Okay, I need to align the company's goals and objectives with LinkedIn, the business's goals and objectives with LinkedIn, which can be lead generation, brand awareness, partnerships, and so on, with my personal brand. So what fits both of these elements? So if you have a set of topics I like, things I like to do, things I like to talk about, and a set of things the company wants to talk about that aligns with the company's objectives, where does the intersect happen, right? So this is where you can create or ideate a bunch of content formats that you can do consistently. Because again, with LinkedIn content, what's important is that you do it consistently long term, and that is going to generate the bulk of the results for you, and not just a few posts that perform really well, right? So it's not just about you doing like a few posts really well, like producing some really good interview videos or podcasts really well. What matters is that you do it consistently over months and years, and that's what generates the most results. So think of like where does the intersect come between your company's, your business's goals and objectives, and your own personal topics like that you're interested in talking about.
Well, Adi, you dropped some genuine nuggets of gold there. Now, I just want to change the pace slightly here, and tell me, running a company, and being as successful as you've been with Growth Club, what's your morning routine like?
Okay, so my morning routine has changed a lot over the past few years. Especially like say, I have this habit of reading. So I've read several books like the 5 a.m. I think it's called the 5 a.m. Miracle. And then there's the Miracle Morning. There's a bunch of those books that teach you about morning routines. And even when you read a bunch of like say stories of founders and entrepreneurs that have made it, despite all odds, you get a glimpse of like what their morning routines were. So I've incorporated a lot of aspects from all the books I've read, my own experiments, and so on. But here's how my morning routine goes. All right. So I usually wake up in between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. That's on most days. There are days when I have coaching sessions or sales calls at night on some days. Days that I can avoid. This I cannot avoid. I try to avoid it on most days. But on most days, I wake up in between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. There's no fixed time because I want it to be a bit more natural when I get up. And the first thing that I do after I wake up is I read um, a daily affirmations note that I have in my Evernote app on my phone. All right, so that's just um, a note that primes me for the day. So I've listed like, okay, exactly what I have to do for the next 1 or 2 hours. So I tell myself, okay, this is the to start with. This is why you're reading this note. This is like say what is like the structure of the note. So I detail all of that in there. I try to instill the importance of reading this note every day. And then I talk about the next steps that I need to take throughout the day. So the next step is usually running up and down the stairs. So that's the easiest exercise you can have. But recently I've been hitting the gym. But the easiest exercise that you can have is if you have a bunch of stairs at home, just run up and down the stairs a bunch of times, about like 20, 50 times or something. That's a really good exercise. So exercise is the very next step. And then after that, I sit down and have some tea. I take a bath, and then I go start writing. So usually this happens from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. I sit down and write for about 2 hours. If there's any video recording needed, I'm trying to set up a better recording setup, but I do have somewhat of a minimum viable recording setup right now. So I sit and record some videos. Now, all of this content is not, all of this writing stuff that I do is not just LinkedIn content. It can be blog posts, it can be Slack messages or informations or announcements that I make to my team, it can be emails, but it's just writing. And my move is always writing. I really like writing. And I think jotting down everything in my head in the morning gives me a lot of, how do you say it, thinking space, creative thinking space in the morning. And after that, I proceed with first with the goal task for Growth Club. So goal task for Growth Club in the sense we have a bunch of tasks that are that have to be prioritized above other tasks like client works and so on. So I prioritize those tasks first, and then move on to client work, and then I get inundated with Slack messages. So then that takes up the rest of the day, and towards night it's just me playing catch up with messages on Slack.
Wow. And within that, I know you're someone who uses tech a lot to be as productive as possible. So what are some of the best productivity hacks that you've learned through the years?
All right, so productivity again. I think it's a lot of the things that we do, especially as online marketers, have to do a lot with the system that you have. So this is something I brag about a lot actually. There are two main things that you need to optimize for to start with to make sure that you're being productive enough. The first thing is making sure you have a really, really fast system. So um, I am not a spendthrift in any respect. I hate spending money. But one thing I've really spent a lot of money on is making sure I have like literally the best Mac, the most expensive Mac I could buy. The reason I did that, and the reason I recommend everyone do this, prioritize this, is because this is kind of like the window into the world outside, right? Your system is kind of like the window into the world outside. So that's the way I think about this. And if you have like a slow system, you won't even realize how unproductive you are or how slow you are being. And I
Interesting.
think making sure that you have the best window or the best system that's fast enough is the very first step that you can take to make sure that you're productive. All right. I know it
Mm.
sounds like a very trivial or a very cheesy advice, a piece of advice, but I don't think it's being said enough. The second thing, obviously, is making sure you have a really fast internet connection. Again, this is can be a bit difficult, especially if you're a digital nomad, if you travel around a lot. But
Yes.
because I work from home, it's something that I can optimize for. And I think these are the two most important aspects that you have to optimize for. The third thing is a specific feature that Mac has. So it's the way you swipe through screens. So most of you are familiar with this, but this is one specific feature that I've come across. Like I've discussed this on calls, on coaching calls, and I'm actually talking about speaking with founders and CEOs of companies who are already really productive people. And
Yes.
something I've noticed is many of them take spend a lot of time while switching through tabs. And on average, almost everybody I talk to works through a lot of tabs. So we're talking about Slack, the task management software. Maybe they have Zoom on the side, then Google Chrome, Firefox, and so on. So there's a bunch of apps that they've opened all the time, and they cannot switch through tabs easily. So something that Mac allows us to do is the three-finger swipe. So I can easily swipe through the screens very easily, and that I think saves a lot of my time. It's one specific feature about Mac that I love. The second thing is your task management platform. So um,
Mm.
many of you may be familiar with the task quadrant. So what I mean by that is a segmented list of tasks that you have. So a lot of the tasks that come into your queue may or may not be important, and they may or may not be urgent. So the task quadrant basically helps us segment or organize our tasks into like four separate queues. So on the top you have on the top left, you have tasks that are important and urgent. Below that, you have tasks that are important but not urgent. And on the left side, on the right side, you have tasks that are um, not important but urgent, and the tasks that are not important nor urgent.
Mm.
So the bottom quadrant that the latter bottom quadrant is something that I never get to. So I always dump tasks in there, but I never do them. I just delegate them at the max. But having this task quadrant and making sure that you're segmenting all your lists or your tasks to these separate lists, I think is very, very important to make sure that you're focusing on the right things at the right time. And this may not be true, say, like if you are working in a company, but I think if you're a founder and you're running a business, it just doesn't make business sense, good business sense, if you don't have a system like this. Because let's be
Yes.
honest, like especially in agencies and in consulting, you will get a shit ton of tasks coming into your queue, and almost all of them will seem urgent, will seem more interesting than the tasks that you're working on. But unless you properly prioritize them, it's going to be a wreck. Like all day you'll be putting out fires. So
Very true.
I think it's very important to have a task coordinator. So I think ClickUp makes it very easy to do this,
Mm.
specifically because they offer something like called dashboards. So you can create your own customized dashboards and like structures on which, like say, how you view your tasks and so on. And I think ClickUp is what we use for this. But yeah, I think that sums up my tech setup.
Amazing. And running a team and working with top marketers like you are, what's your leadership style? How do you manage your team and how do you keep them performing at their best?
Yeah, so in simple words, work your ass off and pray that they work. But um, I think compassion goes a long way. Many people disagree with this. Many who are like my mentors or like better marketers or better founders or partners. But I think compassion goes a long way into making sure that people are comfortable with you. So a lot of
Mm.
the times, the reason a team member doesn't perform well or performs really well has little to do with the kind of work that is assigned to them or the kind of training you give them to perform that kind of work. It has a lot more to do with how approachable you are as a leader, right? So
Mm.
almost in every single task, they will have pain points and struggles and obstacles that they face at the start. And if they're not able to approach you and resolve those issues, they're going to get stuck, and the task is going to get delayed. And this goes a long way, because in especially in an agency, when you think about a task getting delayed, doesn't just impact that task, right? It produces like a ripple effect that affects all tasks that come throughout the lifetime of that agency from then on. So I think it's very important that we make sure that we set expectations properly with team members, and we kind of portray a personality that makes them comfortable with approaching you. And I've seen this over the years when I've tested different approaches with my team members, that if I have like a very approachable, easygoing personality, they tend to be more easygoing with me. I tend to be more approachable to them. So they reach out to me, they ask their questions, and the work progresses along. But at the same time, it poses a problem with me not being able to be strict enough, and deadlines being missed. But at the same time, if I'm being too strict and being like a hard ass, what's gonna happen is I won't be too approachable, and they won't approach me to clear out their questions and their concerns, and function well, right? So I think what the right approach to take is to set expectations clearly as to what you expect from them. Be polite 100% in every single scenario, whether it's like the worst scenario, the best scenario, and at the same time be a very easygoing, cracking lame jokes everyday boss, who seems very approachable to the team.
Amazing, amazing. And now, if we can talk about LinkedIn a little bit, LinkedIn's changed a lot over the last couple of years. And where do you see LinkedIn marketing going in, say, the next 12 months?
Oh, the key pointers would be the content reach is going to decline to such an extent that a lot of LinkedIn marketers, especially LinkedIn content marketers, are going to shut shop. Advertisers are going to thrive. A lot more money is going to go into advertising as opposed to content marketing. And the other obvious development will be LinkedIn video content will be a lot more prioritized as to other content. All social media platforms have taken that route. So the basis of this has to do with something called the creator consumer gap. So think of like Facebook 10 years ago. So Facebook 10 years ago, there were a few users creating content. There were a large number of people reading that content. So we call it the creator consumer gap.
Yeah.
So any social media platform has this creator consumer gap at the very start. There'll be few creators and there are a very large number of consumers. So whenever you publish something, you get like a lot of reach because you have very less competition. Now, as time progresses and the social media platform proves useful for businesses to create content and market content and build a brand presence on, what happens is the competition increases, right? So if you take a look at Facebook today, the biggest brands in the world are spending money on ads and creating content and setting up their pages and shops and like sell stuff on Facebook. Now, that means a lot of competition, which means very low organic reach for people who want to build their brand on Facebook.
Yes.
Now, if you take a look at something like LinkedIn, on the other hand, LinkedIn is kind of in the midst of it, right? So it's been a few years since LinkedIn introduced the LinkedIn feed, and even today you get somewhat good organic reach, not as good organic reach as say like 2 or 3 years ago. But I can guarantee that within the next 2 to 3 years, the organic reach will decline to such an extent that people will see results only if they start spending money on ads. Which is why I say in the next 2 to 3 years, a lot of content marketers on LinkedIn will shut down. They will have to, but advertising will thrive. And the other obvious key pointer is videos. So this is a trend that you've seen on every single social media platform, including the new ones who are specifically focusing on LinkedIn. I'm sorry, on videos. So if you take something like TikTok only recently started allowing you to post photos, but it's been a native video platform. So it's a video first platform. And LinkedIn, all social media platforms are going to move to that trend because, well, video is the future. So I think something that you should already have started focusing on as marketers is focus a lot more on video.
So you would suggest coming into LinkedIn and being prepared to get some video on the platform as well, and maybe uh, prioritizing video in your content marketing strategy.
Exactly.
Okay. And what are some strategies that work exceptionally well on LinkedIn?
Good question. Okay. So if you ask me like what has worked for me and worked for clients specifically, the thing is a lot of the strategies that work specifically well on LinkedIn differ for different industries. So for example, in the consulting space, I think webinars work way more beautifully than any other marketing channel. I think at least like from what we've seen so far. So even with IG right now, Imagine Growth, which is one of my companies where we coach tech leaders and founders on how to use LinkedIn better. We generate like a six-figure pipeline every month with webinars. And all we do is we create like a LinkedIn event page, and we have like a banner, and we have like a Zoom link where they can register for the webinar. We have it integrated via a marketing automation tool called Integrity or Zapier to an email marketing platform. So when somebody clicks register on the LinkedIn event page, the email data of that prospect or that user is sent to MailerLite, which is our email marketing platform, and we send them like a bunch of email reminders saying, okay, hey, the webinar is happening on this date. Hey, here's a testimonial of a client we worked with, so testimonial 1, 2, etc. So we have a sequence built out over there. But it's such a simple setup. It's such a simple setup that we use the exact same webinar tech. We don't even change it every month,
Yes.
and we're generating a six-figure pipeline. Now, I'm going to be a bit more. I don't want to sound pompous about this, but here's the thing. We had scheduled a webinar, an IG webinar. I think it was tomorrow, the day after, and we had to push it off because Alex, my co-founder at IG, still has not completed the sales calls that we booked from the previous webinar. This is the first time it's happening for us, but I think that should be a testament to how well webinars can work. What most people don't recognize about webinars is that, think about it, you're adding value in a webinar for like an hour or like 45 minutes, and you're spending like 5 minutes on a quick pitch, right? So people tend to trust you, they tend to know you, which is why they're spending like an hour with you. And at the end of it, you get to give them a pitch. And considering that you're at like presenting the webinar to around like hundreds of people at the same time, what you're effectively doing is you're giving a sales pitch to like 100 people. So even if you have like abysmal conversion rates, you can get like a lot of inquiries from the webinars that you run. I think even at Growth Lab, at least 20 to 30% of our clientele has come from webinars.
Wow.
So it's a really powerful marketing. That's one strategy that works really well.
Amazing. Adia, I've always said you give away too much for free. I think right there was enough value to just do a mic drop and we walk away, and we should actually sell this podcast.
That's just one strategy. So another simple thing that I can suggest is, again, see, this is such an underrated strategy that most people just assume that it doesn't work. It's so simple to do, right? So all you need to do is create a LinkedIn poll, and you ask like a very salesy question. So very salesy question in the likes of, would you be interested in my podcast? Or would you be interested in LinkedIn marketing services? Would you be interested in generating 20 leads per week on LinkedIn consistently from your own user profile? So very salesy question, and you give them two options, yes or no. You can even do this with lead magnets. You can ask them, okay, would you like access to our viral content marketing playbook that outlines how we generated 100 million views on LinkedIn? Something like that, right? So very salesy question, and you give them two options, yes or no. So to all of the people who vote on yes, start a conversation. Just reach out to them and tell them, okay, here's how you can go about doing it, like some quick pointers. You can send them a link to the lead magnet and so on. And at the end of the message, just ask them a question. Would you be interested in getting on a call with me, and I'll explain this in more detail? No, zero exceptions, zero expectations. or zero commitments and so on. So you just ask them an open-ended question like that. You're going to generate meetings like clockwork. So it's just such a simple strategy, but even after, I think we even teach it in the webinar, but
Yes.
so many people, so few people like actually use it to start generating meetings. The
Now,
very first time that we used the strategy, we generated around 15 meetings from one single poll.
that's amazing. And I actually see another use case for this is if you have a product or anything that you want to know how your market feels about it, you can run exactly that to get instant feedback right there. That's amazing.
Exactly. And as long as you combine your like sales navigator strategy where you're targeting the right people who fit your ICPs and adding them consistently to the network, you will have like relevant people voting on these polls. So, and if you use hashtags as well, you can target the right kind of people that you'd like to see the poll. So it's just such a no-brainer, but very few people use these kind of strategies. And third one, maybe I can drop is okay. Create a landing page for like a free lead magnet that you've created, and
Mhm.
always drop the link to that landing page in the signature of all your LinkedIn messages. So what I mean by any kind of message that you send on LinkedIn, it should be cheers, Graham, founder of so and so, and the end of it you have a link to that landing page, right?
Oh, wow.
And make sure you include the signature in every single message that you send out. This is a very easy way to get people to sign up to your email list from that landing page, and you can keep nurturing them with your email sequences.
That's brilliant. Uh, nope, I think I've changed my mind. This isn't a free podcast. We're charging for this one right there and then. Amazing, Adi. Thank you for dropping that. Now, can we flip this around? Like, instead of talking about what is working on LinkedIn, what should you avoid when it comes to LinkedIn marketing? What's the worst things that you can do?
Oh, I think LinkedIn is one of those platforms that's very, very vehemently against automation
Hmm.
and stuff that violates the terms and conditions. So, something I can very specifically tell you is it's very difficult to have an agency setup where you're accessing your client's LinkedIn profile. The
Mm.
reason is it's specifically against LinkedIn's terms, and so they specifically ask you not to share your logins with any third-party user. So, which means if you're working in my team, I'm not supposed to share my login with you because that violates LinkedIn's terms and conditions. So it's very difficult to like say get a loop around this, like, find a way around this. So I think the first thing that you need to focus on while getting started with your LinkedIn strategy is take a look at the common terms and conditions, like not sharing credentials with other users on your team or with an agency setup,
Hmm.
and um, I'm not against automation. I do think that if you don't properly run automation, if you're not careful with it, you will get screwed. And
Mm.
LinkedIn is very good at identifying profiles that use automation. So I don't think automation is evil, like a lot of organic LinkedIn content marketers. But I do believe that you need to be very careful if you're doing automation, right?
Mm. Yes.
And then, yeah, another very obvious one. If you're doing any kind of outreach on LinkedIn, make sure you get a Sales Navigator subscription. Over the past 1 year, I think LinkedIn has been cracking down on a lot of users that are actively visiting a lot of LinkedIn profiles. So what I mean by that is there are
Mm.
specific activities that LinkedIn takes into account to consider if there's any suspicious activity in your account. So
Hmm.
one of them is logins from like multiple IP addresses, right?
Yes.
Another one, and something I don't agree with, is visiting a lot of visiting a lot of LinkedIn profiles. If you view a lot of LinkedIn profiles, LinkedIn sees that as suspicious activity for some reason. That's one of the reasons why
Mm.
if you send like view a lot of LinkedIn profiles without a Sales Navigator subscription, you get like a restriction from LinkedIn. They even tell you, even if you're not using automation, they warn you and tell you that you may be using an automation software, so you have to reduce the usage of that. You have to stop the usage of that. So one thing I
Mm.
can recommend is if you're doing any kind of outreach, you will have to view user profiles of your prospects. So make sure you get a Sales Navigator subscription. Getting a Sales Navigator subscription is your safeguard to make sure that your account doesn't get restricted. And after the third ban, you are pretty much screwed because LinkedIn is not going to reinstate your account.
Okay, so definitely Sales Navigator, absolutely worth it.
Definitely.
Definitely. Okay, and then if somebody's just starting out, maybe they have zero network, they're brand new to LinkedIn, or maybe they somebody who hasn't ever posted on LinkedIn. What would your advice be to them? How should they get started?
The most underrated, the most easiest, and the most ignored aspect of LinkedIn marketing is profile branding. Let me tell you
Mm,
why. Irrespective of like what kind of marketing you do, what kind of marketing, personal branding, content marketing, outreach you do on LinkedIn, the first thing that somebody does when they see a post from you on the LinkedIn feed or they see a message from you in their inbox is they check out your LinkedIn profile, right? So
yes.
they don't move on to the next step without checking out your LinkedIn profile. So it's super important that you've branded and optimized your LinkedIn profile in a manner that portrays thought leadership and authority and authenticity and so on. It has to stand out. So that starts with like each element on your LinkedIn profile, starting from the banner image or the cover image, your profile image. You have to be smiling, you have to be presentable, you have to be looking at the camera, you have to have a good background. It should be well lit. So
Mm,
all of these things need to be taken into account. So you need to have a good profile image. You need to have an optimized headline. So that's the text that comes immediately below your profile image. It needs to talk about the value rather than the designation. So the truth is nobody gives a crap if I am the founder or the CEO of Truth Lab. What they care about is how I can help them, right? So
yes.
rather than say founder and CEO of Truth Lab, it should be something along the lines of I help B2B businesses with branding, content marketing, and personal branding, something that's on,
Mm,
right? So the formula I usually recommend is I help X with Y using Z, right? Something in that formula. So that's the headline, and then we have the remaining section. So we have the about section, which is kind of like a sales pitch on your profile. The featured section, which is I think, in my opinion, a very important part of the LinkedIn profile. From our
mm,
experiments, we understood that adding like a proper featured section with a CTA to say schedule calls or book a demo with you can single-handedly improve your conversion rates on LinkedIn in terms of like say visitors to your profile to the number of consultation call books. So if that is a CTA, that is a goal that you're looking for, it can improve your conversion rates by up to 300% just having the
wow.
feature section on the profile. So, and after that, we have your skills and experiences section, very important for LinkedIn search optimization. And LinkedIn has also added recently the introductory cards on your profile. So that's the services you provide snippet that you have immediately below your headline, the hiring snippet. If you have any roles that you're hiring for, you can feature them on your profile. So all of these introductory cards are also important for LinkedIn search optimization. And then finally, you have your endorsements. So
Mm,
endorsements are very important for the SSI score on LinkedIn. So SSI score stands for Social Selling Index, which is a score that LinkedIn gives you on the basis of like all your activity on LinkedIn, like your content, your outreach, your sales navigator usage, and so on. And on the
yes.
basis of the score, they award you with more content reach and better results on the platform, mostly with respect to content and LinkedIn search appearances. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's a benefit. So endorsements are really important for that. So try to get as many endorsements as possible. And then finally, we have recommendations. So
Mm,
it's actually very easy to get recommendations from most users on LinkedIn, but they just don't do it. You just need to list down a bunch of your contacts and reach out to them with 3 or 4 questions that you would like them to answer when they leave you a recommendation. So what I mean by that is when
mhm.
you reach out like a bunch of contacts and you ask them to leave a recommendation, they're going to leave a generic recommendation like, I loved working with Adi, or I cannot recommend Adi enough, and stuff like that, right? And that's a
Yes.
very generic recommendation. We want the recommendations to be glowing. So what we do for that is we can put together like a bunch of questions that we would like them to answer when they leave a recommendation. So that's a much better
Mm,
approach to getting like really good recommendations.
very interesting. Very interesting.
All right.
So,
So if somebody was starting out on LinkedIn, this is what I would recommend. Focus on your profile.
mm, excellent. Excellent advice. Okay, and just in terms of getting recommendations, do you just recommend reaching out to everybody in your network, or how would you go about that?
Pardon, can you repeat your question? I think there was a break.
Oh, no problem. In terms of getting recommendations, would you just blanket ask everybody in your network, or is there some sort of strategy there that you would recommend?
Yeah, all your professional contacts. So again,
Mm.
you can ask your personal contacts. You can ask your personal contacts, I guess, because you should, but you shouldn't have the same surname. That would be spooky. But if you have a bunch of professional contacts, irrespective of who they can be your colleagues, they can be your employees, they can be your employers, they can be acquaintances you met on LinkedIn even. List all
Mm.
of them. Um, just make sure that they be comfortable with this question when you ask them for recommendation, and just list all of them and reach out to them one by one on LinkedIn or via email or via WhatsApp, and just ask them to leave recommendations. I think we've
Awesome.
specifically experimented about whether it matters as to who leaves the recommendations. Say, like, if I get a recommendation from a CEO, does it matter more than if I get a recommendation from somebody working on my team? The truth is,
Yes.
it doesn't matter. People don't like say see the recommendation and then click onto the profile and see who left the recommendation. They
Mm.
only read the recommendation content. So just make sure you have like a really good recommendation. Like you have a glowing recommendation. It doesn't matter like who you get the recommendation from.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, and then what did you do that made Growth Club so successful? Can you take us through the process step by step on how you built Growth Club?
Okay, okay, let me be humble here. I don't think Growth is as successful as it can be. We're still growing. But one of the things we focused on very early on, especially after we started landing like a lot of clients from LinkedIn, was we understood that we couldn't scale up with just all kinds of services, right?
Mm.
And something we decided to do was focus on LinkedIn marketing alone, right? Pivot and focus on LinkedIn marketing alone as opposed to like offering all kinds of services like blog content marketing or advertising, web design, like being a full service digital marketing agency. We
Hmm.
decided not to do that anymore. And the reason I did that was I eventually understood that it's better to be the big fish in a small pond rather than a whale in the ocean. So something that's very achievable if you're focusing on like a specific skill set or a specific kind of service, like a niche down service, is you can
Hmm.
scale up very quickly. You can get better very quickly at what you do, and you can create processes like internal processes for your team and train them faster. Again, because you're just focusing on like a few specific things,
Yes.
right? So that's one of the biggest paradigm shifts we had at the start of Growth Lab. I think that helped us a lot. Even today, like I get like a lot of team members who come and suggest to me that we should start offering other services. It's high time we start doing it. But the truth is, even today, I think that we can grow faster just by focusing on LinkedIn alone. Okay.
Amazing.
And even today, I do feel that we should stop focusing on like landing all, like working with all types of LinkedIn clients, and maybe we should focus on one specific niche. Say working with, I don't know, mental health coaches or productivity coaches alone, because again, it's better to be the big fish in the small pond, right? So. But again, we don't do that. We work with all kinds of industries because I think it's important to acquire that expertise and
Mm.
see what is working in different industries. Um, which brings me to the second big paradigm shift I had. So
Yes.
at the start, obviously, like most agency founders, I used to focus on the revenue first approach, which is landing more clients, generating more revenue for the company.
Mm.
I think one thing that I stopped was I stopped taking on a lot more clients. I placed a limit on the number of clients that we could take on per month or have at a particular period of time. And we started focusing on more scalable models. Now,
Mm.
the reason I did that is when you start taking on more clients and more clients, what happens is you start to spend more on client work and you stop learning and you stop focusing on how you can grow your company better. All right. This is especially true in the consulting space, especially with done for you service providers.
Yes.
And most of them just focus on landing more and more clients. And the truth is, over time, their processes get outdated or they're blasted out. Like say they go out of business because of a LinkedIn algorithm change. And this was I saw a lot of this in the SEO industry because that's the niche I started working in.
Mhm.
Whenever Google published an algorithm update, like a lot of SEOs used to go out of business because that was not the way they used to do business. That was not the way they used to do search engine optimization. And I think it's very important that a significant amount of your time is spent towards growth experimentation or experimenting with different stuff, experimenting with different niches, let's say different content formats, different outreach methodologies, tactics, softwares, tools, and so on, to understand what is progressing, how is the niche progressing, how is the industry progressing, how is the platform progressing, and so on. So that was the second biggest paradigm shift, and I think it helped us a lot because even today, I don't think I've come across, even in all our coaching calls that we've had at Imagine Truth over the past 2 years, I've never come across one single question that we couldn't answer because of this one specific aspect. Because we're always ahead of the curve because of the amount of experimentation we do. And the revenue comes second. We just focus on learning way more.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, I think those are the two most important elements, and I think I think the third aspect is like making sure that you hire because any sensible founder who's worth his salt understands that it's the team that does the work, right? You just give them the direction to do the work, but it's the
Yes.
team that does the work. So I think it's very important to hire for the right roles that you want to delegate because unless you hire for the right roles, you won't even understand how a process can be improved. So I'm just not talking
Mhm.
about like implementing new processes and getting the work done better. I'm saying unless you say like you have a recruiter who is handling the HR work for you, you won't even understand what kind of roles you can hire for, or what kind of processes or compliances you need to have in place in the company to improve that particular process. So the problem with most founders is that they assume that they can do the work themselves and they don't hire for a particular role. But what happens is if you have the ability, if you have the funds to set aside to hire for a particular role, you should,
Mhm.
because that person who's coming in is going to develop that particular process to such an extent that you will not have thought of what could be done in that area in the company. So it's not just about getting work done, it's also about understanding what could be done in that particular role. So a big example and shout out I can give in this area is to Nikhil, who is my CEO, he's the Chief Operating Officer at Truth Club. So it was only after Nikhil came in that I began to get a glimpse of what could be done with our video process, what could be done with our hiring processes, what could be done with our internal documentation and data management and so on. Now, could I have done this myself? Of course, I could have done this myself, but I would never have done it myself because I was always focusing on growth or more important aspects of running the business.
Yes.
So I think it's very important to like start hiring when you're capable of doing it.
Amazing. I think that's very, very solid advice. And we are starting to run out of time here a little bit, so I just wanted to shift gears and ask, what's the best thing that you've been able to do for somebody else because of your success?
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm not sure if this is what you're looking for, but maybe I'll give an anecdotal story
Please.
of somebody we actually helped at Growth Lab. This was in the very early days of Growth Lab. So it wasn't really after they became successful, it became before we became kind of successful.
Yes.
So I think it was after the first few months after we introduced our LinkedIn marketing service, we were generating a lot of leads, of course, because of the content was generating a lot of brand impressions. We were generating on average like 100,000 views. So we had a lot of people reaching out to us. But one specific message that stood out in the inbox was of she was a lady. She was working in the US,
Hmm.
and her ex boss was out of a job. So he was being made redundant in his job, and he was looking for a new role. All right.
Yes.
Now, and he didn't want to hire a LinkedIn agency to help him with landing a few interviews. So what she did was she approached us. She got us to help him with this LinkedIn profile, like optimize his LinkedIn profile and start reaching out to interviewers and recruiters and HR departments of companies. And he was a high level professional. Like he was at the VP level of a Fortune 500 bank. So
Mm.
that's pretty well paid position. So there aren't many other open positions that you can apply for, right?
Yeah.
And we started helping him with it. And this lady specifically asked us not to tell him that she was paying us to help him with the work.
Mm.
And I even ended up offering her a discount because I felt too bad. I think she was doing a good deed with trying to help out a friend, and eventually he landed a job. Eventually he got a role. It wasn't actually from one of the interviews we landed.
Hmm.
We landed about 5 interviews in total. I think 2 or 3 of them were from the work that we did, and he eventually went with one of the roles that he had gotten from his own network.
I
But
see.
think about this. It was an underpaid gig that we got from LinkedIn. It was not the usual kind of work that we did. We couldn't create a case study out of it and show it to the world. Um, the client even didn't even know that it was working for him. And the results that we generated for him, even though they were good results, didn't generate any fruitful results for him. But
Mm.
even then, I think to this day, that is one client experience I had that I just smile about
That's
because
amazing.
we actually helped someone, and that's we were being part of something that was nice.
Well, Adi, thanks for sharing that. That is an amazing story. So, before we end this, I wanted to do a bit of a quick fire round, and I deliberately didn't make you aware of these questions. So the idea is, I just want you to answer as quickly as possible without thinking, and we're going to run through a couple of these questions. How does that sound? Okay, perfect. So, are
All
you
right, let's do it.
are you introverted or extroverted?
Introverted, definitely.
100%. And then PC or Mac?
Mac, definitely.
Android or Apple?
Oh, okay. Apple, definitely.
Apple. Okay, okay. What's one business tool you can't live without? Just one.
Okay, there's everything from GCU to Zoom that we use on a daily basis, but I think one business tool I can live without is ClickUp. Very
Amazing.
important.
Amazing. And what's your dream car? Hello, Adi?
Yes, yes, I'm here.
Yes,
Did you ask me a question? I didn't hear that.
yeah, what's your dream car?
Dream car has to be a Maserati.
Maserati, nice. And what's your favorite business book or course?
Oh, the consulting.com accelerator has to be the best course. If you're asking me
Mm.
about the business book, it has nothing to do with business, but it's the Miracle Morning because it talks about morning routines. And I really believe that the importance of the productivity that you can achieve has to do a lot with the discipline that you have in your daily life.
Amazing. And cats or dogs?
Oh, dogs.
Dogs.
I'm afraid of cats, I think.
And who who are your business role models or figures who inspire you?
Oh, Gary Vaynerchuk, Sam Owens, and I think Richard Branson is kind of like an OG, like an original gangster. So I really like his brand. So, but
Amazing.
yeah, those three have to be the main ones. But if you ask me of the most inspirational one that I always look up to, obviously it's Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, amazing. And if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
I think there was a lag in your audio. I didn't hear your audio. Can you please say that
Sure.
again?
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Oh, damn. Okay. Has to be Goa. So that has to be the Agonda Beach in Goa. It's
Ooh,
beautiful.
amazing. And then, last question. If you could go back to when you first started in business, what's the one lesson you teach your younger self and why?
Can you please repeat that?
Sure. If you could go back to when you first started in business, what's the one lesson you teach your younger self and why?
Dude. Has to be set a proper routine, get fucking disciplined, focus on your daily routine a lot more than you learn about business or LinkedIn marketing or marketing as a whole. Because having discipline is very essential if you want to achieve success.
Wow, that's some powerful advice right there. And then, Adi, thank you so much for your time. Now, before we call it a day, what's the best way for my listeners to learn more about you and Growth Club?
The best way is to just search me on LinkedIn. So just search for ADI space SUJ on LinkedIn and you should be able to find my profile. I have a weird name, so not many are these Sujas on LinkedIn, I guess.
Amazing, amazing. Adi, thank you so much for your time. This has been an amazing call. I learned a lot. I hope that you, our viewers, learned a lot as well. And just thank you for dropping this knowledge, Adi. I think, again, like this is something you could put in a paid
Thank you for
course.
having me, Graham. It's great to be on the episode.
Amazing. Thank you, Adi. Have an amazing day. Bye bye.
Maybe we will. I'm not sure, but I think we have a lot of the stuff. A lot of the stuff that we talk about here are being covered in the paid course. But thanks for having me. I think it's a really good idea to do podcasts, and I'm so jealous. Like I've wanted to do podcasts for a long time, and I'm
Yeah.
really glad you took the initiative.
Well, amazing. Thank you again, Adi.
Yep, yep, yep.